You wake up before the sun. You're 82 now, and the room is still dark. Not the kind of dark that means the middle of the night. The kind that hasn't decided yet if it's morning. You already know what's waiting on your phone. And this time, the number matters. Social Security deposit received. You pick it up anyway. You look at the number. You set it back down. Then you pick it up again, like maybe it'll say something different the second time. 20 years ago, that same message meant something completely different. It meant freedom. Tonight, at 82, it means something else. You're not even sure you could explain what if someone asked you. Stick with me, because over the next few minutes, you're going to live through those 20 years, and by the end, you'll understand exactly what changed and what that little notification really came to mean. Let's go back to where it started. Your last day of work was a Friday. You remember the drive home more than the actual day. No alarm to set for Monday. No traffic report that mattered anymore. No reason to check the clock on the dashboard. You handed in your badge, walked out to the parking lot, and felt something you didn't expect. Not sadness, just relief. Plain and simple, and simpler than you thought it would feel. 2 weeks later, the first deposit landed. You sat at the kitchen table with your coffee. No rush to finish it, for the first time in years. You looked at the number for a long moment before you even opened the message all the way, like it was something you wanted to sit with a little first. $2,100. Not a fortune, but yours. Every month. For the rest of your life, however long that turned out to be. Your daughter Maggie asked you once, gently, if 62 was too early to start. You could wait, she said, setting her fork down. It gets bigger the longer you hold off. You just shrugged. I've got time now. That's worth something too. And it was. At 62, time felt like something you'd never run out of. Like a whole different kind of money, one you'd never had to budget before. The first few years were everything you hoped for. Coffee on the porch before the street woke up, mug warm in both hands. Long walks with nowhere to be. You started going to the library on Tuesdays just to read the paper somebody else had already finished. The librarian started saving your usual chair without you even asking. You helped your neighbor Walt fix his fence one Saturday. Somehow that turned into most Saturdays. 2 retired guys, some tools, a radio playing something neither of you were really listening to. Sunday dinners with Maggie became a real thing, not just a holiday thing. You'd show up with a pie from the bakery down the street, and she'd tease you for never bringing anything homemade. You'd laugh about it every single time, like it was new. You told Maggie one night, "This isn't so hard. I don't know what everyone worries about." You didn't know it yet, but those were the easy years. Your knees still worked. Nothing broke that you couldn't fix yourself. Then, at 66, your car wouldn't start. Just a dry click when you turned the key. Then nothing. The mechanic walked you out to the open hood and gave you the number without much of a wind-up. $1,100. Transmission trouble. You stood there a second longer than you needed to, looking at the engine like maybe it would change its mind. When you were working, a bill like that meant picking up a weekend shift. Maybe 2. Problem solved, barely felt. Now there was no shift to pick up. There was only what you already had, and whatever that had to last for. You paid it. You drove home slower than usual. That had nothing to do with the car. By 68, the check hadn't changed. But everything around it had gotten more expensive. You noticed it first at the grocery store. Same cart. $7 more one month, $12 more the next. The cashier read out the total the same flat way every time, like it wasn't a big deal. To you, it kind of was. You didn't make a big deal out of it. You just started buying the cheaper coffee and telling yourself it tasted about the same. Breakfast with Walt went from every Saturday to the first Saturday of the month. Nobody talked about it. It just happened. At 70, you had what you'd later call the tooth year. A back tooth had been bothering you for months. It finally needed real work, and what Medicare covered turned out to be a lot less than you thought it would be. You sat in the dentist's chair doing the math in your head before you even stood up. You paid the rest out of savings you'd promised yourself you wouldn't touch. You didn't tell Maggie the number. When she asked how you were doing, you said, "Can't complain." That was true. It just wasn't the whole truth. 2 years after that, you were cleaning out a hallway closet and found an old spiral notebook, your own handwriting, tracking your very first year of retirement, grocery costs, the electric bill. One line that just said, "Fixed Walt's fence, no cost. Good day." You sat on the floor longer than you meant to. Your knees didn't love the position. The notebook sat open across your lap. The numbers weren't that different from what you spend now. But the reason you were writing them down had changed completely. At 62, it felt like a game. Now it felt like something you needed to keep track of, like it mattered in a different way. The check hadn't changed much. You had. Here's the thing nobody tells you at 62. You think retirement means you're finally done worrying about money. You're not. You just trade one kind of worry for another. The first kind is loud. It's about paying the bills. The second kind is quieter. It's about what happens the year something goes wrong that you didn't plan for. At 74, you stopped driving after dark. Nobody told you to. Your eyes just stopped trusting the headlights. Every oncoming car turned into a blur of light, halos where there used to be clean edges. There was one close call on a wet road by the pharmacy, and that settled it. Now Maggie drove you to evening appointments. She rearranged her whole week around yours, sitting in waiting rooms scrolling her phone while some doctor checked your blood pressure. And you started paying the neighbor kid $10 to mow the lawn you used to handle yourself in under an hour. Small things. Things that used to cost you nothing now had a price tag. Your body had quietly changed the deal without telling you first. Around the same time, the stairs to your basement started feeling steeper than they used to. Nothing happened. No fall. No injury. You just noticed yourself holding the railing a little tighter, a little longer. You moved the laundry basket to the main floor and told yourself it was just more convenient that way. It wasn't. It was easier. There's a difference. And you knew it, even if you didn't say it out loud to anyone. Maggie noticed before you said anything out loud. One Sunday, watching you wave off a second helping you clearly wanted, she finally said it. "Dad, if money's tight, I can help. It's not a big deal." You shook your head before she even finished the sentence. "I'm fine, really." You weren't lying. Not exactly. You just weren't telling her about the little things you'd started cutting without writing them down anywhere. The coffee, the diner, the thermostat set 2 degrees lower than you liked it. Some things a father just doesn't hand his daughter, even when she's offering, even when part of you wants to say yes. Walt, next door, had it a little easier. Small pension from his old job at the plant, on top of his Social Security. Maybe $400 extra a month. Didn't sound like much on paper. But when his water heater died the same year your air conditioner did, Walt wrote the check without blinking and went back to his crossword, pencil tapping the table like nothing had happened. You sat with your repair estimate for 2 days before you finally called anyone. Ran the number in your head every night before bed, the way you used to run through a work problem you couldn't quite solve. Neither of you had done anything wrong. From the outside, your lives looked almost the same. Nobody watching from the street would have guessed the difference. The real difference wasn't how smart either of you was, and it wasn't luck either. It was the quiet worry sitting under your decisions that wasn't sitting under his. At 77, your granddaughter Sophie called, all excited, asking if you could chip in $300 for a graduation trip with her friends. You didn't have it free that month, not without moving something else around. And moving things around had started to feel a lot riskier than it used to, like pulling one thread and not knowing what else comes loose. You told her you couldn't send the money. The words caught a little on the way out, but you still wanted to give her something. So you spent the next 2 weekends building her a small wooden box in the garage, the way your own father taught you years ago. Sawdust on the floor, radio playing low, the smell of fresh-cut wood filling the whole garage. She cried when she opened it, more than she probably would have over a check. She told you she was taking it with her wherever she went. That was the day you understood something. Money wasn't the only thing you still had left to give. By 79, that little phone notification had meant a lot of different things over the years. Freedom, at first, back when it felt like a small monthly celebration. Then just routine, background noise to a life you'd stopped thinking too hard about. Somewhere in your 70s, it turned into a kind of boundary. A line you checked in your head before you said yes to anything, a number you did math against without even meaning to. And now, at 82, lying here before the sun's even up, it means something quieter than all of that. It means you're still okay, still here, still able to make your own choices, even the small ones, even the ones nobody else would notice. You sit up. The mattress creaks the way it always does now. You pick the phone back up and look at the same number you looked at 10 minutes ago. It hasn't changed since then. You have. You think about that notebook, still sitting in the hallway closet. You think about Walt's fence and Sophie's little wooden box sitting in a dorm room somewhere across the country, probably a little dusty by now, still kept anyway. You think about a tooth that cost more than you expected, and a car that wouldn't start on an ordinary Tuesday 20 years ago now, just a dry click and nothing else. You think about the stairs, and the railing, and the laundry basket you never moved back down. 20 years, and that check showed up every single time. Right on schedule. Never once late. Never once smaller than it should have been. What it had to cover kept changing. What it meant to you kept changing. The number was never really the story. What you built around that number was. If you're planning to lean on Social Security as your main income, the number itself isn't really the question worth losing sleep over tonight, lying awake with the phone still warm in your hand. The real question is what your life is going to need that number to cover 20 years from now, and whether you've given yourself enough room to handle the years you can't see coming yet. Nobody sits down at 62 and asks that question out loud. Maybe they should. If you want more honest stories about what retirement really looks like, stick around. There's more of this coming, of